I didn't want to include 2022, which was the year that they barely missed the playoffs after the the Rams screwed us out of making the playoffs, and the league screwed us with terrible calls. But after all of that, I did include 2022 in this situation. So AG, we all love AG. Like I said, a leader of men, and I think he will be a better head coach than he was a defensive coordinator. I say that because as a head coach, he can bring in somebody else as a defensive coordinator, and they can collaborate on a game plan. But as AG, as our defensive coordinator, in this new era of football, we all know that this game is tailored towards offense. Every year, there is less and less a defense can do to stop the opponent. The one thing that the league cannot take away from, well, they can. They got unsportsmanlike, unnecessary roughness. But my point is, the one thing the league can't take away from is sacks. It is undeniable that creating a sack is going to disrupt the offense, and it's the best way to disrupt the offense. You're stopping the offense, they're losing yards, and they're losing a down. So that's indisputable. On top of that, you're getting pressure. You might be causing an interception, or you might force a fumble. All that being said, with AG as the defensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions in 2022, the Detroit Lions were 18th in sacks. In 2023, the Lions were 23rd in sacks. And last year, they were 23rd in sacks. Never been a top half of the league in sacks. And this year, being 23rd in sacks, that means that they were worse than teams like the Jets, the Giants, the Browns, the Saints, and the Raiders. My question to you is, although we love AG, has AG, even with the injuries, even with the personnel, has AG underperformed as defensive coordinator of the Lions?
No, not at all. I would say he hasn't. So I feel like if our defensive line hadn't got hurt, like essentially we lost every player that was on the defensive line, maybe except for DJ Reader, and DJ Reader is not a sack guy. So I can't really put that on AG. The fact that we lost our entire defensive line and our defense still went out there and sustained games, and AG drew up. We could clearly see that there were certain games that AG drew up a game plan that stifled other teams. Despite who was in there, it was like despite who was in there, a lot of the guys were free agents, and they were plugged right in day one of a brand new defense, and you know what I'm saying, and it worked out. They held it down. In some games, they even played better than the offense played. So for that, you have to give AG credit. Now, is AG stubborn? Did sometimes he stay in, like maybe stayed in man too long, or he was too willing to stick to whatever game plan he wrote up at the beginning of the game, and did not want to budge off of it? Yeah, you had those games too, but for the most part, I would have to say that AG was excellent coordinator this year. I had my questions about him the first 2 seasons he was here, but he's come a long way and proven to me that no, he was not the problem.
We probably disagree the most on this one. You said that, you know, there was a game or two where he would draw up this and have success with that. As soon as you said that, I thought about Malachi Flynn. Do you know who Malachi Flynn is?
No.
Malachi Flynn played on the horrible, disastrous Detroit Pistons last year. He'll never be anything in the NBA. He's never done anything in the NBA other than the one day that he showed up to work and he dropped 50 points in the Detroit Pistons game. And that was it. That was it. That's going to be the story of Malachi Flynn. He's going to retire. He's going to go somewhere, and he's going to talk about that day where he woke up and he dropped 50 points in an NBA game. Now that's not to say that he's not he has no business being in the league, or he's not a good basketball player. You know, that's just to say that even on the right day, a blind squirrel might find a nut. You know what I mean? So that being said, AG, like I said, he's a great leader. He's great at getting the people together, rallying guys. But I mean, I understand that the defensive line was hurt this year, but that doesn't explain how 2022 they created the most sacks when all they had was Hutch and James Houston trying to convince everybody that he was something. Other than that, you know, there wasn't a whole lot. They never lost anything from the defensive line. They've only gained, and it hasn't translated to anything. You could say that, yeah, they were hurt this year, but they were not. I mean, Hutch was there all year last year. People are arguing that Hutchinson is the best, best pass rusher in football. And even though he only played like 6 games this year, nobody on the team could eclipse him in terms of sacks. I just don't understand that, how you just can't generate any pressure. Kirby Joseph was a bright spot, but you know, interceptions it's partly scheme, yes, but interceptions are also making a play on the ball. And Kirby Joseph is just a natural playmaker who they allow the freedom to go out there and make these plays. But I don't know, man. I can't get past the fact that this team does not create sacks. And that's why I'm hoping that whoever they bring in next year as defensive coordinator, we see a huge uptick in sacks. I mentioned the names like we joke and we laugh and we make fun of teams like the Jets and the Browns and the Saints and the Raiders and the Giants. How like we were the best, we were the number 1 seed in the NFC. How are these teams better at generating sacks than we are?
I would just have to say talent, man. Talent. Aiden Hutchinson is the best person to generate sacks in the, probably, like you said, to your point, in the league. He had 7 and he only played 5 games, and he led the NFL for a majority of the season, even with him only playing 5 games. He was still leading the league. I want to say like 4 or 5 games after he got hurt. But other than that, who is closest to him? Maybe Aleem McNeil, but Aleem McNeil is a defensive tackle, which is a lot more harder to get sacks, I feel like.
Darius Smith was second on the team, and he's only been there. I don't know if they included his. I'm pretty sure that's only with the Lions. I don't think that's his work coming in. Right.
So, and Darius Smith had 4 sacks. I want to say 4.5 sacks. So, like when you look at Zadarius Smith compared to Aiden Hutchinson, I mean, no disrespect to Zadarius. I love Zadarius Smith, man. He's a good player, but the drop off from him to Aiden Hutchinson is major.
So who do the Saints have that is just lighting the league on fire with all the injuries they had this year?
I can't remember his name. Cam.
37-year-old Cam. What? Cam Jordan. All right. Well, you know what? This is a great opportunity.
At the end of the day, man. Look, to your point, man. To your point, AG was a DB. You know what I'm saying? When he got his DBs, he made sure that our DB secondary was elite. Maybe that is a factor in the fact that he was a DB and not a defensive lineman. Played a factor in how he schemed up things, because he had a secondary out there, playing excellent, but maybe he just doesn't have the skills to translate it over to the defensive line.
It's a perfect opportunity to transition into another guy who really prides himself on DBs, and that is Brad Holmes. Now I want to see how you maneuver this one, because essentially what I took out of it is that the Lions just didn't have the talent to rush the passer and generate sacks. So by my nature, I couldn't help but figure, well, that sounds like a Brad Holmes.
Detroit